balances this cool action elements, this superhero element, but like you keep saying, it comes back to these emotional things. To me, the biggest part of this whole film is Murphy trying to reclaim his humanity. Once he realizes that something is wrong, he has to go out and seek this.
Hey guys, welcome back to the SuperCaZt. It's been a minute, but I'm your host, the Fosh, and of course I'm joined by my buddy SteveZ, and we are back, man. How's it feel to be back?
Well, for these guys that are listening to this, it's not like we just came back because we've been releasing videos, but for us, it's been a long time since we recorded.
Yeah.
You can tell by my hair and how long it
but,
is. It's been a
we're
while.
Back, man, and really excited about today's episode. Really excited about the review we're going to do later. And if you didn't already know, this is RoboCop, obviously.
All right, here we are.
And
RoboCop.
nice.
Finally, it's time to talk about RoboCop. This is a film that I've been wanting you to watch for a long, long time because I knew you would like it. I knew this is your kind of film that you would just really enjoy it. So how did it go for you? What did you like about it?
Oh, it was so fun. Like, there's so much going on in this film. And we'll debate on the whole superhero thing in a minute, but this film is... I often wondered, when I was watching this, if people did not realize what kind of a film this was going into it, because you think RoboCop, you think almost sort of a family thing or a teenager thing, but this film is very violent. I think, is it rated R? Is it?
Oh, it's very much rated R. Like in fact, the version you watched is probably not rated. That's pretty much the only version available now is the not rated version.
I mean, yeah, unless you were just completely oblivious or something, if you walked in there thinking, oh, this is just going to be like, and there's cheese. There's an 80s cheese in there, and we'll talk about that. But just from a standpoint of the violence, and I mean like really early on, they don't pull a lot of punches. It's very graphic, especially at the boardroom scene, when that robot shoots up that dude and he falls out the window. It's just, I mean, I was a little bit taken aback. This movie's just still so fun. Like, it's just a lot of fun. I obviously love RoboCop. He's cool. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this film. I don't know what took me so long to watch it, but it hooked me like almost immediately.
Yeah, it's a great film. I like all the stuff you're saying about the violence and stuff, and that's the part that kind of went over my head the first time I watched this.
Oh, sure.
So I have a very bizarre story the first time I ever watched this film.
Go for it, man. I want to hear this.
So this is way back when it first came out.
Okay.
So I'm like 4 years old or so.
Right.
And my dad is going over to his friend's house, and he brings my sister and me with him because I guess my mom was out of town or something. Mm-hmm. So he had to watch this, but he wanted to watch RoboCop. He knew he would just fall asleep. It's like they waited around until it got late, and they started the film. Yeah. So like I remember seeing parts of this film the first time. But the reason why I remember that memory so vivid because right before I watched RoboCop, I reenacted this thing from this other film I watched earlier that day. I think it was it's one of those Donald Duck films where he goes to Mexico.
Oh, yeah,
and he was dancing with a cactus or something.
Yep.
So I decided to dance with a cactus at 4 years old. I put my hands all up on that cactus. And it's basically I lost feeling in my hands. I felt like RoboCop that night.
Wow.
But I remember parts of it. I remember him like waking up. I remember him eating the baby food.
Yeah.
I remember some of the shooting, but for some reason I don't remember the violence.
Right.
I started noticing this like when I rented it on VHS. I was probably like 5th grade, and that time I probably had the experience you had this time where I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy!
Yeah.
Leon just melted," stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I still loved it. At that point, I loved it mainly for the action.
Sure.
I started to notice the satire that's built in there, sort of the funny side of it. But now when I watch this film, I just love it all. It's the action's awesome. As you were saying, the score is great. That RoboCop theme really brings it home. And that's the kind of part that they marketed us as kids. Like for some reason they did market this to kids. They had a Saturday morning cartoon.
Oh yeah.
Where RoboCop actually gets killed in that at the beginning, and you see that, but it's obviously toned down a lot from the film version. But they also have toys. I remember they had lots of that.
Yep.
So it's kind of bizarre to package R-rated films to kids, but I guess they were trying to bring us in, watch it eventually.
It was a different time, man.
Now, as an adult, I definitely noticed the satire a lot more. How it's making fun of corporate greed, how it's making fun of our ads, making fun of us as a society. It's a great film. It's got a lot there, which brings me into our first major topic of it. This is kind of a hodgepodge movie. Yes, on the surface it's sci-fi. Yes, on the surface it's action.
Right.
But if you were going to classify this, do you think it fits any of those? Or do you think it's just kind of all of these columns just kind of added together?
You know, I was just thinking, as you were mentioning that point right there, that's the thing that surprised me is this film is hard. Like, if you're trying to describe it to somebody who's never seen it, there's so many different elements. Yes, you've got your 80s cheese, for sure. But there's also, you know, the violence, as we mentioned. But then there's a lot of heart. There's a lot of them. And that's something that I think really, one of the bigger surprises is how much emotion there is, especially towards the end when RoboCop goes back to his house and he's, you know, trying to remember his kid and his wife. And, I mean, he's not necessarily emotional, except you see it in his eyes. And it's just... Peter Weller, he is so good. Like, he is just, he's got the right amount of, you know, machine and man that just, there's still humanity left in him, and he does a really good job of expressing that. So that was one of the bigger surprises, other than the violence, was how much emotion was actually, and that it worked, that it really didn't take away from all the other stuff that was going on.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of this film that I really love is his sort of character arc, and we'll get into that more later.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of heart there. But to me, the part that makes it the most interesting is a lot of the social commentary that gets thrown in here, such as, I mean, the 80s, and that's what I like to think about, is this was made toward the end of the 80s, the Reagan era, the yuppies, all that. And it's really the first time we see corporate greed kind of shown in a movie like this. And it's so great because we see that all around us now. We see this corporate greed that engulfs pretty much everything we do, all the media we consume. And I love it how that somehow makes it into the film. Not only because we see the villains in that, but we see what's happening to this society. This Detroit is being taken over by crime, and we find out the crime is being financed by those corporate billionaires that are going to reap the benefits when all these people's lives are in shambles. That they don't care about you. And I think that's the part that kind of appealed to Paul Verhoeven. I don't like to get into this too much, but I like this story of how he chose to do this film, because he originally did, like we thought, when you hear the title RoboCop, it's like, that sounds stupid. And he just like read the first page, threw it in the trash, but his wife picked it up and she started reading through it. And she's like, hey, this is really good. And he said he started picking up on some of this stuff that I'm talking about, this satire, this deeper human things that you're talking about, and that's what really elevates it, because these guys, I don't know, I think they did a very good job of crafting the story, of creating this world. Yes, it's the near future, but it's I don't know, it's very much like our world. It's just kind of amplified, if you will. Like, the crime is obviously much, much worse. These criminals, they're just psychotic. And I guess they're saying that our morals are declining, that eventually this is what we're going to turn into. I don't know where I'm going with this. I think just the big part of it is just how all this fits together. And I think that's a hard thing to do, because this film it's pretty short. It's very briskly told.
It is.
And it doesn't waste any moments.
No, it's no, I agree with you. There's just, like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it reminded me, and I don't think this is just a coincidence, but there was a video game that was released a few years ago called Detroit Become Human, based in Detroit, just like RoboCop. It's basically the opposite. It's where an android becomes more human, whereas in this, the human is becoming more android. And so there's a really interesting parallel to that. And I was like, yeah, that's not just coincidence. When they have to be inspired because, again, just like in RoboCop, Detroit's a crime-infested city, and it's just really corrupt. And yeah, I mean, just it really, like I said a minute ago, it just shocked me how deep this film actually was. Because before I started, I thought, yeah, I know there's a lot of action. I know there's going to be at least one or two scenes where there's going to be emotion, where Peter, wakes up as RoboCop and stuff like that. But I didn't realize how deep it goes into, describing how and showing you how Detroit has just basically become a crime state, or whatever you call it. And I thought the story was a lot deeper than I had anticipated. And that, to me, as much as I do love the other stuff, the humor and the violence and everything, that's what really sold me on this film, is the storytelling. It was a lot deeper. And I know I keep repeating myself, but that's the best thing I could say about this film, is that it took what could have been a ridiculous premise and made it something I think actually really special. And I think you should celebrate this film. And I think if you like cinema and you like noirish kind of thing and action, I think you can't help but have a good time with this film.
Don't touch him! He didn't hear it!
Dick, I'm very disappointed.
Sure, it's only a glitch. A temporary setback.
You call this a glitch?
I keep bringing up the corporate greed aspect. I mean, our main bad guy is Ronnie Cox, Dick Jones. He's terrible. I mean, this guy is hiring criminals to go around and terrorize the place, just so he can get people to move out of the neighborhoods, so they can turn it into a police state, basically, that they can take over everything. He wants to use Ed 209, this giant unthinking machine that can't even differentiate between good guys and bad guys. He wants to unleash that on the population. And whenever, his coworker gets killed right in front of him, no remorse. He's just like, sorry that it malfunctioned. We're just going to work on it a little bit more. Yeah, nothing to see here. And that's just kind of crazy. There's just how some of these people react. Bob Morton, who I don't know if he's supposed to be a good guy or bad guy, because he creates RoboCop, but I don't really like him. He sees this opportunity as a way to upgrade his status. He's like, hey, guess what? I got this idea for RoboCop. And he just swoops in and makes a sale right there. It's terrible stuff. But then we get the Joker. I heard somebody say this. They say that basically Kurtwood Smith as Francis Boddicker is the best embodiment of the Joker ever seen in film. That's a big hot take there, but
wow,
I think this guy is like Kurtwood Smith. Like, this is the part that freaked me out as a kid, because I think I'd seen him on that 70s show or some other stuff. Like, he was the dad in Dead Poet Society. And he freaked me out. I was like, this guy's saying the F word all the time, and he's just going around just creating mayhem. Like, at one point, they just get out rocket launchers, start blowing up random gas stations. They brutally kill this great guy Murphy in very sadistic manner. Like, what do you think about any of these performances? Dick Jones, Francis Boddicker. What do you guys say?
I want to start with Francis, because he was an interesting character, because I think outright he is a villain. You definitely put him in the villain camp. But that scene where he's pleading with RoboCop and he's talking about Dick Jones as the real bad guy, I kind of want to believe him. I kind of want to believe that Francis had no choice, that he was forced into doing all these things, and that he was corrupted by this very corrupt city and government and all that kind of thing. So that was another surprise, because I knew that he was in this film, and I just assumed he was just a bad guy, in the story. And I guess there is an argument for that. And if you said, no, this guy was always a bad guy, then I think that's a legit argument there. But as far as what he brought to the film, I was really impressed. I mean, yeah, he cusses a lot, and he has that violent attack with RoboCop, and his face is all bloody and everything, and he gets the crap kicked out of him by RoboCop, which was really interesting to
Very
watch.
cathartic.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, again, like I said earlier, it was amazing how deep this film went, and you just don't expect that in a film called RoboCop.
Yeah, because I see what you're going here. This guy is a psychopath, yes. That's not good.
Exactly.
That's not what we want in society. We don't want people like that running around. But
Right.
maybe if he gets caught doing some petty crimes or something, he goes and gets the right help. Maybe he's an okay dude. But the problem is Dick Jones and those guys basically say, here's all the guns you want. Here's all the money you want. Go steal more money. Just feed those desires, those sadistic urges, sort of. Because this guy and his crew are not normal people. They are not just normal bad guys. They don't just want to make money. They want to wreck people's lives. They want to massacre the police. It's pretty messed up. And Kurtwood Smith, I think his performance is great because, like all the great villains, you don't know what they're gonna do. Like you're watching them, it's almost like suspenseful. You're waiting for something to happen, and when it does, you're like, "Oh, I didn't see that happen." And either he's gonna say something crazy, or he's gonna pull out a gun and shoot somebody. It's a very interesting performance and very interesting character. Dick Jones, yeah. Ronnie Cox, I know this was going against like typecast because like he was known for like Beverly Hills Cop being the good detective, but now he's a terrible dude. That scene in the bathroom is just very uncomfortable every time I watch it.
Oh my
he's just
God.
hiding in there, or I guess he's using the bathroom for real, and he overhears this conversation. He comes out and just like, "I'm threatened to kill you now," and he sends Francis Boddicker to this guy's house and just has him murdered.
Yep.
I mean, just because you took away my cell, you took away my deal, cost me a promotion, so I'm going to kill you. Pretty terrible stuff.
Yeah, like I said, it's just when you think you can't go any darker or any more violent, it just seems like it just got more and more like...
Yeah, I think the corporation is worse.
Yeah.
I think Dick Jones and the corporation he works for, OCP, these people, they're bad. I mean, they are trying to take over the police force. They basically this whole RoboCop program, they were just waiting for a guy to die that day.
Yeah.
That's what kills me is they needed a cop to die that day, and it happens to be Murphy. Okay, we're going to repurpose your life now. We don't know what happens to his family. Did they know this is what happens to their father and their husband? It's very messed up, and they just take this man, and now they're going to take away his humanity. We are going to program this guy and to do the objectives we want. It's insane. It's insane that they think they can get away with this. I mean, Murphy did not volunteer for this. I mean, yes, he volunteered to risk his life and put himself out there as a cop. That's the good thing about these Detroit police here is these guys, they're going through the ringer. They're getting the worst stuff happen, but yet they show up to work every day. They put their lives out there. I mean, Murphy, he's a good guy. But they take that away from him. They just make him a machine. And that's just a crazy concept. Getting into what you were saying earlier, this movie's a lot deeper. Just this idea that your humanity can be stripped from you. The scariest thing that you could possibly think of, almost.
No doubt. Let's get into Murphy. Let's get into RoboCop and just talk about that. Again, coming into this movie pretty much sight unseen. I didn't know what to anticipate about Murphy prior to becoming RoboCop, and if I would, if I'd had any attachment to him just as Murphy, as the regular cop. And I like him. I thought he was a good character. I think he is definitely the good guy, and he's got the little gun twirl kind of thing. And he's coming in here. He's obviously a good cop. He's obviously somebody that came from a different precinct. So I think the movie does a really good job of, and he's not just Murphy for very long in this film. He gets killed pretty quickly. Like you said, this movie's not long at all, so it moves at a brisk pace. So you don't get a lot of time with just Murphy the human, but I think the time that you do get adds to how you feel about him when he becomes RoboCop. What was your reaction to Murphy prior to becoming RoboCop?
Yeah, he's great. I love Peter Weller as an actor. This and Buckaroo Banzai are two of the best performances I can think of with him. He's great because this man, you have to get to like him in these first few scenes, and you learn a lot about him. It's like, okay, he's competent in his job. That's great. He's nice to his coworkers. He's a good dude, but he's not going to take any crap. If anybody tries to mess with him, he's like, sorry, you can't bust my chops. I'm the real deal. And he's willing to go out there and put his life on the line for the good cause. I mean, he's a great dude. And that's why it's tragic when he gets killed in such a humiliating way. It's rough. And I think Paul Verhoeven, I don't like to get into the Christ comparisons, but that's kind of what he was going for with this, was like he gets killed, then he gets born again. That's kind of silly to me. But that as a performance, once he becomes RoboCop, that's the part that I really like, because basically you're having to act with this part of your face. That's all you can see. That's why a lot of people turned down this role, because they didn't want to have their face hidden. But also in the way he walks. That's just a lot of actors would not think to take the calculations and the sort of get these movements down. I think that's a really cool part of it.
Yeah, I mean, he had to be in this very uncomfortable suit. He couldn't sit in the car full suit. They had to take like the bottom part off, so he's just in like boxer shorts from the waist down, driving the car, which I thought was a funny visual. But yeah, I mean, we can debate, is RoboCop a superhero? Is he an anti-hero? I think that's up for a discussion, and we don't have to get in that at the moment anyway. But what he does for this character in the little time that he's human, I think really elevates the rest of his performance when he does become RoboCop. Now, one of the things that confused me, or I don't know what, because I watched this movie a couple times, and so I would like try to pay attention. But when he gets killed in that ambush in the what is it, a warehouse or something like that, and he gets killed, there's no like funeral scene. There's no, hey, Murphy's dead. It's just like they keep going without him, like he wasn't even there. And like I said, the first time I watched it, I thought, did I miss something? Because I felt like there was a scene missing there. That was one of the very, very few critiques that I had, is that they just kind of jumped from him getting killed to, okay, now it's RoboCop.
But I think that's what makes this film better than most movies that would make this, like, adapt it. Because I think they remade it later, and I heard that movie just kind of sucks. Because we don't need that scene. That's just going to make it almost melodramatic. It's like, we already feel bad. This guy that we like just got killed.
Sure.
Now we want to see his family cry and all that. And then just showing you how this gets taken away. Is these people don't get to mourn. We don't get to see that. Lewis doesn't get to know what happens to her partner after he gets killed right here in front of her face. But instead we switch to that point of view for, I guess, the next like 5 minutes or so. It's very experimental. It's just RoboCop's POV as basically Murphy comes back to life, and these people are doing unspeakable things to him. Like at one point they're, oh crap, we didn't connect this. We've just brought him up. We nearly killed him. They're partying right in front of him. He can't move or anything. They're just like, Happy New Year's. You're going to be great. It's such a weird part of the film, but I like that because it kind of creates a unique film experience and adds to this what we have. That's kind of what I think they didn't include that, because it would just kind of be sort of cheesy, melodramatic, and this film does have its cheese elements, but it doesn't want to go that route.
Yeah, and I applaud him for that. I think, I would understand if they did something a little bit more, but I see your point. You make a really good point, because I feel like that was another strength of this film, is that it didn't linger on too much for too long. I thought the pacing was really good. I don't think you want to drag a movie out like this. I think it could get boring. I think it could get repetitive or, too cheesy because, again, we're in the 80s. There's a lot of 80s cheese in this, but there's a lot of heart. And I think they do a really good job of balancing the two. And, again, that really surprised me that they could do that, but I think they pull it off. Obviously, Murphy gets a partner when he comes to the precinct, and then when he becomes RoboCop. What do you think about the partner? What do you think about Lewis? What was your what's your feelings on that character and the performance and all that?
Yeah, so this is a character that I didn't really like as much as a kid, but I really like now. I think she's the first one that notices that, oh, that's Murphy.
Yeah.
And she's kind of in tune to that, and she realizes, oh crap, what did they do to this guy? She's not like, oh yes, he gets to keep living. This is great. We have this guy on our side now. It's more like, crap, this is not good. And she's the one that lets him see who he really is after she helps him get repaired and everything. And she's just a good partner. She only knew this guy for like a day, but she's going to basically risk her life with him in that final fight at the end. I don't know. I think Nancy Allen, she just brings a lot of spunk and stuff to her role. I think she's the one that decided to cut her hair that way. And kind of look that way because I think prior to this she was considered to be like a bombshell. Like she's a Hollywood actress, but in this one she's kind of got this tough tone to her where she's not going to take any crap, and we believe it. Like when she gets into that fight at the beginning, it's like, oh yeah, I can see this girl doing this.
Yeah, she was very believable as a cop, and I think that was one of the first things that really surprised me about her is that she had this short, kind of boyish haircut. I think she's still beautiful. I think she's a really pretty girl and everything. So she was attractive, but she wasn't. She kicked butt. She punched some guys and shot people. So she held her on. And like you said, she recognized. I think probably the moment she saw RoboCop, hey, that's Murphy, and she didn't overly freak out. There wasn't a big dramatic moment. I'm glad there was not any sort of romantic stuff going on there too. Like they didn't try to force a relationship because they could have done that. You never know.
Yeah.
But they're partners. They're still partners, and I think that once she realizes who he really was, then she wants to help him, and I think they become even better partners after the fact. So I applaud the film on that, and I applaud the performance of her because she could have been, maybe a little too much in the film, but I think they used her really, really well, and I think the performance she gives really constitutes her time on screen. And it's not too much, it's not too little, it's just about right.
Yeah, and this is kind of why I like this movie, why I like 80s films in general, is because when it comes to screenplay writing, they do a lot with a little. So with her, we learn that, a lot of her partners have died, and that goes into her performance, that goes into the way her character goes. She's seen some stuff, and when she first sees Murphy's like, I don't want to get too attached to this guy because he could just die today.
Right.
It's very cool stuff like that, but even the sort of things that get slipped in there about all these different characters, what they get created, because you have all these different things happening in Junction. Like Francis Boddicker's doing his thing over here. You got Dick Jones doing his thing. RoboCop's going around. We still got to get, before we go further with this, we got to talk about action, I guess, really fast. Because there's one scene in particular, I want to see what you thought about that, is when RoboCop first leaves the station for the first time, and we hear that score come in, he gets in the car, he goes around busting crimes. What did you think about that scene? RoboCop flexing for the first time.
Oh, it was great. It was a lot of fun. It kind of reminded me of when Christian Bale's Batman came on the scene and everything, and he's just kicking butt, and it's pure 80s action. It's pure cheese, but it is just so much fun, and that's the thing. I think the ultimate thing about this film is just, yes, it has a lot of heart and a lot of emotions, but there's just a whole lot of fun, and I think you're really rooting for him, and I think that's when he becomes the hero of the story. and you're just like, yeah, I believe it, and just excited me. I love that first, action scene where he, like you said, just goes out of the car or goes with the car and everything, and it's on.
Yeah, it's great because basically we've seen crime run rampant this whole film. We've seen this man get brutally killed, and now guess what? We're sending out this good guy that you can't touch.
Yeah.
We see basically the criminals are helpless
Yeah.
to stop him now, and so now RoboCop's going around helping the helpless. This one girl, she's about to get raped, bad stuff's gonna happen to her. RoboCop shows up. Sorry, not gonna happen today, folks. Goes up to this one place where they're robbing this sort of convenience store. RoboCop shows up. Yes, he trashes the place, but guess what?
Yeah.
Evil cannot survive anymore. We got RoboCop on the streets. He doesn't sleep even. He can just work all day, work all night, just eat a little baby food here and there. It's really cool, and that's what I was getting into. Is like it balances this cool action elements, this superhero element, but like you keep saying, it comes back to these emotional things.
Yeah.
To me, the biggest part of this whole film is Murphy trying to reclaim his humanity. Once he realizes that something is wrong after his nightmare that he has, and he has to go out and seek this. And it's really cool because he gets it back at the end.
Yeah.
What do you think about this man reclaiming his humanity?
Well, my favorite part of this whole film is Francis Boddicker injures RoboCop, and so he's with his partner, and they have this scene, and it's my favorite part of the film because it still shows that he's a human, and there's a human relationship still there. Mind you, not romantic, but just, good platonic thing. And it just shows you that he's not just all machine. There's still a man inside there. And I think that was really well done. And, she has her thing, and he supports her. And that's when I was like, yeah, this movie is A+. I mean, it really took everything you want in this experience and put it all there, and when you get to that part, it's very cathartic, and you're just like, yes, this they were building up to this and everything, and while he may be invincible for a lot of people, he could still be destroyed, and I like that they showed that part.
Yeah, I love that part too, and it gets in that sort of deeper thing. It's like, can you take the humanity out of a person? Can you take away that soul, whatever that is, that was still there, that knew that he did love people and that he does have these memories? They just creep back in there. They are who he is. You cannot delete that. It's not like a computer. And that's really cool. But as we get to the end here, I guess let's talk about this part, because you said you didn't really like the ending.
I guess it's not so much I didn't like it. I felt like, well, my biggest issue with this ending is the brevity. It's just like it almost like cuts off mid sentence. Like he says something and then boom, it's credits. And I'm like, I felt like something was missing there. I felt like something that they just like, okay, we'll just chop that off and boom, roll credits. I'm not saying it ruined the film. I'm not saying it made the film bad or anything like that. It's just, and I'm being really nitpicky because I really love this film. I hope that comes across. But I wanted to, at least find one criticism. And for me, that was probably the biggest one, was just the brevity of the ending and that it just goes boom. But the more I think about it and the more you've talked about it with me, the more I understand it. And I guess don't hate it as much as I did initially. So that's my big one gripe.
That's good. I was going to say maybe you need to watch it again because it's one of those things like you think about how does this ending work. So we have this big fight at the end.
Yeah.
RoboCop walking on water, killing Francis Boddicker.
Yep.
Then he goes and confronts Dick Jones.
Yep.
Before he does, he has to fight Ed 209. So we have this other fight here. Then he goes and kills Dick Jones. But right here we have the main boss. I forget the guy's name, but he says, "Good job," and then he's like, "My name's Murphy."
Yep.
And that's great. He's Murphy. He remembers who he is, and then he gives a smile to the camera.
Yep.
Because he's reclaimed it. He's won.
Yep.
It's great because he was able to beat that directive. Defeat the bad guy, obviously, but the bigger triumph is that this man remembered who he was, and he can live like that. And then the music
Oh, the score was great.
comes in right at the end. Dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun. So that's why I like that ending, just because
Yeah.
that's all we need. We
Yep.
just need to see him say Murphy, smile, music come in. Then I'm clapping for the screen at that
Exactly.
point.
Any other observations? Do you have any other critiques that we haven't talked about that you want to bring up as we wind her down a little bit?
There's some stuff that we forgot to talk about. I guess we call these loose ends here. But we talked about the Ed 209
Yep.
scene in the boardroom, and that was a scene that obviously freaked me out as a kid the first time I watched that. But then I saw the not rated version that's available now, and it's basically I'm desensitized because it keeps going on, and it's supposed to be comedic. I don't.
Oh yeah, it's cheesy. It's for sure.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous, and it gets into like sort of this aversiveness of this film. These commercials they have throughout the whole.
Oh yes,
thing,
yeah.
They might be my favorite part, just because some of them are just so funny. Like I can't remember the one where the family's going to nuke each other. It's silly stuff.
Yeah. Oh, the doctor with the heart transplant. That commercial's crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of cheese. I mean, like we said, for a movie very short, it just goes in a lot of different directions and just gives you all these funny stuff, emotional stuff. But again, it just balances out really well. When they first showed the Ed 209, I was like, that's really terrible stop motion. I mean, it's obviously, I think they did a better job with the Christmas movies back in the day, because that's the one thing that I would think the film that's really aged well is the Ed 209. It almost takes you out of the film just a little bit, or at least it did for me.
It might maybe be the best, but I will say the man who did the stop motion on this, I can't remember his name, but I mean, this guy, he's done great work. He's Jurassic Park. I want to say he was on The Thing. It's Rob Bottin. What am I saying?
Oh, okay.
Rob Bottin did all this stuff. I don't know if he did it stop motion, but he was the effects guy on here. So he's great.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they were time crunch thing because they're working for Orion, who's not like the big studio. And that's kind of what stands out to me is they work around their budget very well. This feels like a big film, even though it's not.
Right.
Because it has all these explosions and guns going off. But you look at RoboCop's cop car, and you're like, they just went to the junkyard and got some random car.
Oh, I love the car.
And just kind of put a new paint job on it. It looks pretty. I mean, definitely not what you would see in a movie nowadays.
Yeah.
Same thing with some of the aspects of it. It's like, okay, you guys cut some corners here and there, but I like how they work with it. It's very good filmmaking, getting the most out of their money.
So yeah, great film. I don't know if it really deserved the sequels. I don't know. I haven't really watched any of the sequels, so we won't get into those today. But I think this film stands alone just fine. I think it's a really good film. It's surprisingly emotional, yet there's still that 80s cheese going for it. So you're going to have a good time. I think you have to try really hard not to have a good time with this film. It's very short. You're not going to have to, sit through a long film or anything like that. So it's a good time for all. And, I'm sorry that it took me so long to watch it start to finish, but hey, better late than never anyways, right?
Definitely. Got another fan out there. That's all that matters.
Nice shooting, son. What's your name? Murphy.
Thank you guys for joining us again. Really glad to bring you some more content, so stay tuned. Make sure you follow us on X at SuperCaZt with a Z, and leave us in the comments what you thought about RoboCop, and let us know. For Steve Z, I am the Super Fosh. We'll see you guys next time on the SuperCaZt.